4 o'clock p.m. and this is the News on Freedom. My name is Mikhail Baranov and I'll be telling you about the important events of the day. Hello? Overnight into Wednesday, the Russian army launched 115 attack drones, Shahed, Gerbera, Tolmas, and other UAVs at Ukraine. Ukrainian air defenders shot down and jammed 95 of these drones using electronic warfare systems. Drone strikes were recorded at 11 locations. 4 people were killed and 2 were injured as a result of the Russian attack on the Zaporizhzhia region. According to Ivan Fedorov, head of the Regional Military Administration, overnight the Russian army fired multiple rocket launchers, launched drones, and dropped aerial bombs. In total, 643 strikes were recorded across 32 towns and villages in the region. The Dnipropetrovsk region was also under attack. A residential building was destroyed in the Sinelnikove district. The search operation is ongoing. There may still be people trapped under the rubble. The occupiers used aerial bombs last night. According to local authorities, 4 people were killed and the child was injured. An educational institution was also damaged. And in addition to that, the Russians shelled Nikopol with artillery. 1 person was killed and 11 were injured as a result of the Russian army's attack on the Kherson region. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Oleksandr Prokudin. The occupiers targeted critical and social infrastructure, as well as residential neighborhoods. 3 apartment buildings and 11 private houses were damaged. A water tower and a gas pipeline were destroyed. Ukraine has submitted materials to the International Criminal Court regarding Russia's attacks on the energy sector. Prosecutor General Ruslan Kravchenko noted that as a result of the massive strikes, the entire technological chain was affected of the energy system. In addition, because of the constant attacks, there are wounded and killed Ukrainians at energy facilities.
The Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court has been informed about the chronology of the attacks, their consequences, the potentially involved units of the Russian armed forces, and representatives of the Russian military political leadership who may have given the orders. The work of collecting and systematizing evidence is ongoing. Ruslan Kravchenko, Prosecutor General of Ukraine, Facebook.
Ukraine and Norway are preparing joint projects in both military and energy sectors, said Volodymyr Zelensky. At the meeting with the Norwegian Prime Minister, we were able to discuss continuing our joint work on a strategic partnership in energy. The Ukrainian leader added that a separate agreement is being prepared.
We thank Norway for being willing to continue helping us with energy, and not just helping, but also working on joint ideas. Today, we discuss some possible future joint projects and some of the energy prospects that could strengthen us. The energy ministers of our countries will be in contact, and there will be an appropriate agreement on energy cooperation.
In turn, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre stated that Ukraine and Norway will establish a strategic partnership. According to him, this partnership will develop in all mutually beneficial areas. At a meeting with President Volodymyr Zelensky, he reminded that Oslo will allocate $8 billion to Kiev in 2026 as support, since there's complete solidarity with Ukraine in the Norwegian parliament.
All political parties in my parliament unanimously support our work regarding Ukraine. There isn't a single party that is against it. We stand together. So this reflects the support of the people of Norway for the struggle you are waging. And you are right. We made a historic decision in February 2022 to actively support the defense of another country that came under attack. And from that moment onward, we've been able to support you within the relatively modest and humble efforts that a smaller nation like ours can make.
Ukrainian troops have recaptured key positions near Stepnohirsk in the Zaporizhzhia region. A series of successful offensive operations were carried out by special forces from the Main Intelligence Directorate. As a result, the fighters significantly improved the tactical situation on this section of the front. During the operation, enemy forces were destroyed. The Russian army's forward assault groups were eliminated, and dozens of occupiers were neutralized. And strikes on the enemy's logistics and communication hubs have made their assaults in this direction impossible. There were 164 combat clashes recorded on the front line over the past day. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the situation remains difficult in 9 directions. In particular, there were 7 Russian attacks. Ukrainian defense forces repelled them in the Lyman sector, 8 in the Siversk, Slobozhansk, and Kursk areas, and 9 each in the Kupiansk and Slavyansk directions. In addition, 16 Russian assaults were repelled at the Kostantinivka bridgehead, 19 at Huliaipol, and 27 at Pokrovsky. Military experts also note the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces in southern Ukraine.
The specific area and the broader region of military operations in Zaporizhzhia remain highly active today. First and foremost, in the sectors to the north of Huliaipol, our dedicated units are successfully stabilizing the situation thanks to these strategic counterattacks. And this is also the case across other parts of Zaporizhzhia. There's fighting around Stepnohirsk and Primorsk. It's quite active here as well. And well, there's more. The second direction of the concept of territorial seizure is the so-called sanitary and buffer zones. This specifically refers to ongoing activity in the Sumy region around the areas of Yunakivka, Yablanivka, and Rechnevika, and also over in the Kharkiv region.
The defense forces eliminated 1,070 Russian occupiers over the past day. Thus, Russia's total combat losses are as follows. Since the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the numbers already exceeded 1,262,000 soldiers. In addition, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 3 Russian tanks, 5 armored combat vehicles, 29 artillery systems, 1 multiple rocket launcher, and 146 vehicles were destroyed yesterday. Of the enemy, Special Operations Forces successfully struck the air defense positions of the Russian army and temporarily occupied Crimea. It has been confirmed that an S-400 Triumf launcher, a radar station, and a Pantsir anti-aircraft missile and gun system, which the Russians used to protect key facilities, were destroyed. And now to other important news of the day. For the first time, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ghana, Samuel Akuzeto Ablakwa, has arrived in Ukraine. He was welcomed by his Ukrainian counterpart, Andriy Sabina. The diplomats discussed economic cooperation, collaboration between the countries and international organizations, as well as humanitarian issues. Special attention was given to the development of agricultural partnerships, cooperation in education, and the defense industries. According to Ablakwa, a separate purpose of his visit was to address the situation of 2 Ghanaian citizens held as prisoners. They fought in the Russian army against Ukraine. And, as the diplomat claims, to lure Ghanaians into their ranks, the Kremlin exploits financial hardships and legal vulnerability in Ghana.
According to our data, as of today, more than 1,780 citizens from the African continent are fighting in the Russian army. In other words, we're talking about mercenaries. Many of them have died and continue to die. We've also taken quite a few of them prisoner already. Overall, according to our information, representatives from 36 African countries are participating in combat on Russia's side. So I believe this is a major challenge. Russia is fraudulently drawing these citizens into the war, condemning them to death. That's why it's so important to counter what you mentioned, both in individual capitals and in cooperation with Ukraine. We need to expose these schemes and prevent our citizens from being dragged into someone else's war.
Moscow is recruiting Africans to fight against Ukraine through criminal human trafficking networks. This was stated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of GUR. In the near future, some African countries plan to tighten control over employment agencies, as well as review migration agreements and limit contacts with educational and cultural institutions of the Russian Federation.
We would like to emphasize right away that they have not received any authorization from Ghana or from any African countries. They became victims of manipulation, disinformation, false information, relevant networks, and human trafficking, which took advantage of the vulnerability of these young people. I would like to thank the government of Ukraine, in particular the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who ensured proper compliance with international law, for providing appropriate conditions of detention.
Local residents in the Dnipropetrovsk region have opened a frontline cafe for servicemen and volunteers. It has been operating since the spring of 2023, and it treats those heading to or returning from the combat zone to free homemade meals. More details about this unique establishment in the following report.
There are more than 1,000 patches on the walls here. All of them are from Ukrainian defenders who have visited the cafe.
The first patches were from when my dad went to visit the guys. They gave them to him, and I slowly started collecting this collection. And now it covers almost 2 whole walls. There are lots of flags, lots of patches that the guys leave us gifts or tokens every time someone has lunch, dinner, or breakfast here. It's like, a little piece of themselves that stays here. It's something really special for us. It's just like, wow.
Here they serve hot meals to soldiers and volunteers who are heading to the front or coming back from the front lines. A family of volunteers opened this home-style cafe in 2023. Now, they serve hot meals here.
The idea came from my husband. Before the cafeteria, he used to visit the guys, and every time he came back, he'd shout, "Tanya, they're hungry, they made it eat." They really are.
Hungry, it turns out. So I think, yeah, they're hungry when they're on the road. You can't always eat those rations. The idea slowly took shape. We need to feed them on the way. We arrived and met a farmer named Seryoga. We checked out the place and picked a spot, and that's how it all got started.
We began construction on an empty lot. Volunteers and the union helped with that. A few months later, the first building appeared here. It became the foundation of the volunteer project. At first, they only served coffee, tea, and pastries to go here. Now, they provide free full meals to between 1,500 and 3,000 visitors a day. Alexander, a serviceman, carries out combat missions in the Pokrov's direction. He says this isn't his first time stopping by here.
The food is really delicious, and every time you come, there are always a lot of people here. So I'm grateful that there are cafeterias like this, a place where you can come in, grab a bite, enjoy a tasty meal, and have something hot or cold to drink.
The kitchen operates around the clock with no days off. We're ready to welcome visitors at any time.
Well, I'm at home, and this is just how it is. Well, it's like being at home. It just happened this way. I guess that's how it was meant to be. We started with small portions, but now we cook enough each time, so the guys always have plenty to eat.
Besides Ukrainian defenders, international volunteers and celebrities often come here. For example, the strongman Vasil Virastyuk has lunched at this cafeteria several times.
All of you, too, and a lot, it seems. The rear does a lot. It seems so. I know the guys stopped by, had some hot borscht or solyanka, potatoes, a piece of meat, and then went on their way. Even just warming up a bit in the winter makes things a little cozier, a lot more cheerful. Our guys are really great. They're so positive. Sometimes they come visit us. Even when things seem really bad for us, they lift our spirits and energize us. We're really grateful to them, too. If it weren't for them, we wouldn't be here either.
Over the past year, the front line has gotten closer, and the shelling has become more frequent, but the volunteers have no intention of moving their kitchen and will keep cooking for the defenders and those who help them, no matter what.
If we're talking about a plan B, we don't have one yet, but we still hope that things will stay the way they are. That means our place will be here until the end of the war. Maybe we'll even turn this into a museum someday.
Dmytro Khlushko from the Dnipropetrovsk region, reporting exclusively for Freedom TV channel.
Russian claims about alleged transfers of nuclear weapons to Ukraine by Western partners are nothing but political pressure, President Volodymyr Zelensky stated. He clarified that the Kremlin resorts to such provocations because of a new round of negotiations to end the war and defeats on the front line. Usually, Russia's tricks don't work.
Typically, when Russia can't win on the battlefield, they start looking for nuclear weapons on Ukrainian territory. There are no nuclear weapons in Ukraine, unfortunately. You know all the circumstances, when they were here and when they were gone, and thanks to what and to whom that happened. So I think this is just preparation for the trilateral meeting. There's political pressure, and there was information in the media that Europe is considering the nuclear umbrella. So maybe this is Russia's response to ETA. But they always play dangerously with these words, and I really wish that other nuclear powers would respond to this. For example, the United States. They could send them an appropriate message.
And as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reported, tomorrow a meeting between the Ukrainian and American delegations is planned in Geneva to discuss a peaceful resolution to the war. The Ukrainian leader expressed doubt that the issue of territories could be resolved during this new round. However, the parties will prepare an economic document. The negotiation team will be led by Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustem Umerov.
He's on his way to Switzerland. Tomorrow, there will be a meeting with the American side there. They will prepare an economic document. At the same time, we are working on a 20-point plan, security guarantees, and a prosperity package. Our economic team is with them. They will be speaking tomorrow. And of course, during such a dialogue, they'll raise questions about the sequence of steps, how to end the war, and so on.